This is episode number 259 of the Middle Country Public Library podcast. Hello and welcome. Sal DiVincenzo here in the studio with my fabulous colleague, Sarah Fade. How are you, Sarah?
Good. How are you?
What's going on this week?
Not much.
Not much, except,
Yes.
you know what we're doing this week?
What?
We're doing some history.
Oh.
It's This Week in History with Jim Ward. He's coming down. He's doing the 22nd through the 29th. I will tell you, I told him not to tell me anything about this week because I wanted to be surprised.
Yeah.
So here we go. Here's another This Week in History with Jim. Well, Jim Ward is in the studio, which can only mean one thing.
It's This Week in History.
Ah,
Woo!
It's so good to have you back.
Thanks for having
Happy
me.
New Year. Welcome.
Happy New
This is
Year.
your first episode of 2023.
Yes.
So
Looking forward to it.
It's good to have you back. Now, we're doing This Week in History.
Yes.
Which is the January 22nd through
The 28th.
the 28th.
Although I did add the 29th on
Did add
because
the
there
29th.
because there was something else
Some
that
good
was pretty
stuff in there.
big. So
Okay.
because otherwise I wouldn't have been able to talk
Does
about
it
it.
have something to do with the Civil War, Jimmy?
No.
Oh,
It actually
ooh.
doesn't.
Oh, no. Okay, don't tell me. So, full disclosure, you know, Jimmy and I usually, before we record, we just like go over what you're going to talk about. But this time I said, don't tell me anything.
He wants to be surprised.
I want to be surprised. All right, Jim, what do you got for us?
All right. So January 22nd, 1901, Queen Victoria of England died after reigning for 64 years, and which was at that time the longest reign in British history, except now we have Queen Elizabeth.
Queen Elizabeth was 70 years.
70 years,
Yes.
1952 to 2022.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Wow, there you go.
Little tidbit for you there.
Wow. Okay.
Then we have January 22nd, 1943. During World War II in the Pacific, Japanese resistance ended in New Guinea, resulting in the first land victory of the war for the Allied forces
First land victory.
in 1943. So
Wow.
that's like a year and change
yeah.
after Pearl Harbor.
Wow.
So it took that long for the first land victory. Interesting.
Yeah.
Here's something I know you'll like. January 22nd, 1984, new Apple Macintosh computer was first displayed during the Super Bowl.
Oh.
The old Macintosh.
Wow, how nice.
Now is that the
was
very
the very first Mac, yeah.
the very first Mac
And to think we record our show on a Mac.
on a Mac? Look at
And it
that.
was 1984, you said?
1984.
1984.
Yeah, I think it was the Bears,
I think
if I'm not mistaken.
it might have been
in the
yeah.
Super Bowl.
You know, I remember using the Mac for the first time. I was in junior high school back then. Now they call it middle school. Back then it was junior high school, and had a music teacher who had one, and this thing was like crazy because it had like a little handle on it. It was big though. It had a handle on
that's
it.
right.
Had the screen.
Yeah.
You turned it on. It had a little happy face there and everything like that. And I remember using it for the first time and saying, I want one of these someday.
And now Apple is all over the place.
All over the place.
You
Yeah.
can't get away from it.
You cannot, no.
So let's see. I thought this one was interesting. January 23rd of 1849, Elizabeth Blackwell was awarded her MD by the Medical Institute of Geneva, New York, thus becoming America's first female doctor
Holy macaroni.
in 1849.
1849.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
1922, January 23rd, 1922, we have insulin first used for the first time.
Oh, wow. 1922.
1922.
Wow. 100 years
Little
last
over.
year.
Yeah,
a
100
little
years
over,
last year.
Wow.
Isn't that something?
Amazing.
So you always think, like, what did people do before
They
that?
they didn't last very long, I guess.
I guess not. Yeah, that's crazy, though.
Modern
100 years.
medicine.
Gotta love it.
Yep.
Let's see. January 23rd, 1964, the 24th Amendment is ratified, which stated the rights of citizens of the United States to vote in any primary or other election for president or vice president, for electors for president or vice president, or for senator or representative in Congress shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or any state by reason of failure to pay any poll tax or other tax.
Wow. So that basically means that even if you're delinquent in your taxes, you still get to vote.
I suppose so.
Yeah.
I suppose so.
We're
January.
probably going to change that back soon. Watch.
What's that?
I said they're probably going to change that back soon. Watch.
January 24th, 1848, the California Gold Rush began with the accidental discovery of the precious metal near Coloma during construction of Sutter's Sawmill.
And you did a History Bites about the California Gold Rush.
Is that coming up? I think it might be coming up this month.
Might be coming up this month.
Yep.
All right. We'll keep an eye out for it.
Keep an eye out for it on YouTube. Absolutely. So apparently this is, and the people that flooded California were called the 49ers. So hence where you get the San Francisco 49ers from. Over $2 billion was extracted during that time period. $2 billion. And
$2 billion today's value or back then?
It didn't specify.
So
my
I'm
research.
going to guess it's probably today's value.
Today's value, $2 billion. And then California's population expanded to 380,000 by the late 1850s, and the gold rush actually sped up the admittance of California as the 31st state.
Of course, you're walking on the side of the road, you bend over, you pick up a piece of gold. Who's going to not want to move there?
It was the golden place to be. January 24th, 1965, Winston Churchill died. He was Britain's wartime prime minister during World War II. He was quoted as saying, "I have nothing to offer but blood, toil, tears, and sweat," upon becoming prime minister at the beginning of the war. He called Hitler's regime a monstrous tyranny, never surpassed in the dark, lamentable catalog of human crime. He also coined the term Iron Curtain.
Yes, arguably, probably one of the greatest leaders that we've had in our lifetime.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah,
for sure. This one, I couldn't believe is 20 years exactly. January 24th, 2003, Department of Homeland Security officially begins operating.
Oh,
so that's been 20 years since that happened. Yeah,
since the DHS.
Yep, DHS. Wow. January 24th, 1924, the first Winter Olympic Games took place in the French Alps.
Nice.
Yeah, isn't that something?
Yeah, they had croissants and
they had
they
had a glorious time.
It was a glorious time in the French Alps.
I thought this one was interesting. The new hourly wage rate was set at 35 cents per hour on January 25th, 1933.
Holy macaroni.
Isn't that something? 35 cents.
35 cents.
Now we're up to
15, right?
15?
What is it? I don't know.
I don't even know anymore. It's got to be like 15 or something.
Got to be up there, yeah.
January 25th, 1947, gangster Al Capone died, who he controlled organized crime in Chicago. So he died in 1947. This one was an interesting one as well. January 25th, 1959, an American Airlines Boeing 707 made the first scheduled transcontinental U.S. flight traveling from California to New York.
Oh, I like that.
Isn't that something?
What
so
year
that's
was that
commercial, again? I guess?
That's commercial, yeah.
Yeah, that was 1959.
1959, yeah. So the Boeing 707 changed travel, forever.
Mm-hmm. Isn't that something?
Very,
1959. I would have thought earlier. I don't know why. I would have thought it would have been.
Well, look, jets were around before that, I think, but
yeah.
in this configuration, and that's back when people dressed up when they flew.
That's right.
Right.
Everyone was fancy.
They wore nice hats and a suit. And dresses and all that kind of stuff.
They went out and wanted to look their best.
And
now it's a different story.
Now it's a different story. Give me my blue chips and my Coca-Cola. Leave me alone.
It's a very different time.
Very different time.
January 25th, 1961, President John F. Kennedy conducted the first live televised presidential news conference 5 days after taking office.
Oh.
So that started now what has become,
like almost a daily thing.
It's a daily thing,
almost
on every network.
Yeah.
And so it all started with Kennedy. 1964, January 25th, the Beatles get their first #1 with "I Want to Hold Your Hand" on the Billboard Hot 100 chart.
Wow.
Yeah.
The British invasion.
That's right. So I guess that was around the time they were on the Ed Sullivan Show, maybe.
Yeah, I think. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I'm
They
guessing
came to
that was the
country
first
and
big one.
They, took over the airwaves.
Yeah.
For a long time. Yeah.
Absolutely.
They don't make them like that anymore.
No.
No,
they don't.
I listened to some of their songs, and just like from a composition, they're not like very complicated compositions,
Mm-hmm.
but they're just perfect.
Their lyrics are just great.
Yeah, it's wow.
We actually had a band here at the library recently called the Evan and James Band,
Mm-hmm.
and they played mostly Beatles, and it was terrific.
Yeah, and it's like generationally, like everybody
Mhm.
likes it. You know,
Everyone loves
the
it,
kids,
yeah.
the adults, the old folks.
Yep.
Everybody,
Everyone loves the
everyone loves the Beatles. Yeah.
um, let's see. January 27th, 1967, 3 American astronauts were killed as fire erupted inside Apollo 1 during a launch simulation test at Cape Kennedy, Florida. Command pilot Gus Grissom, senior pilot Ed White, and pilot Roger B. Chaffee were killed.
Yeah, this was a sad one.
Yeah, that was the one that made them really like look at everything.
All
and
the safety features,
and
being able to get out of the capsule
the
quickly,
latch.
the latch. Yeah,
Yep.
it's like all these different things.
It's crazy. January 27th, 1973, U.S. involvement in the Vietnam War ended as North Vietnamese and American representatives came together and finally concluded the war at this point.
Wow.
Over 58,000 Americans were killed, 300,000 wounded, and 2,500 declared missing. It's very sad. And total of 566 prisoners of war were held by the North Vietnamese during the war, with 55 reported deaths.
Can't believe that's 50 years ago.
Yeah, isn't that something?
Wow.
Oh, yeah, exactly. 50 years
ago.
Yeah, that's 50 years ago. January 28th, 1915, the U.S. Coast Guard was created by an act of Congress, combining the life-saving service and the revenue cutter service. So that began the U.S. Coast Guard.
Yes, they guard the coasts, among other things.
Among many other things.
Many other things, yeah.
You know, there upon my research for my thesis at St. Joseph's, I was a history major. In my research, it came about that the U.S. Coast Guard came about as a result of the Titanic sinking.
Really?
Because I guess they didn't have the ships looking for ice and, notifying the ships. So it was really, they were just relying on other ships in the area to alert them if there was any ice in the area.
Wow. Okay.
So, yeah, so that's a little tidbit for you.
Yeah, a
there.
little tidbit there. Yeah, absolutely.
And then we have on January 28th, 1986, the U.S. Space Shuttle's Challenger exploded 74 seconds into flight, killing 7 people, including Krista McAuliffe, who was the teacher on board. And, later on, you'll probably remember Reagan's speech.
I remember that. It's funny. I said before, the first time I used a Mac was in this class, this actual class. It's weird how things intersect.
Isn't that something?
This was the class where our teacher, they made the announcement over the loudspeaker.
Oh, wow.
And my teacher, said, okay, let's have a moment of silence.
Yeah.
And then I used his Mac.
Wow.
But
that is something, though.
Yeah.
They actually announced that over the loudspeaker.
Yeah, they announced it over the loudspeaker. Yeah, and then we had a moment of silence.
Oh, wow.
And I just remember going back home and watching, it was Eyewitness News, Channel 7.
Yeah.
And they kept playing this thing over and over again. And they were like showing the close-up videos, and they were trying to say, look, there's something happens right here.
Yeah.
Because there's that little puff, that
right.
little kind of where it kind of started, the explosion started. And they kept like playing it back and forth and doing all the stuff. And I just remember it was, I think it was a pivotal moment for me because it was the first time, and nowadays on TV, they show people, dying and all these horrible stuff.
Right.
And we're kind of desensitized. I think the kids' generation now, they're totally desensitized.
Oh, yeah.
But back then, when I was a kid, that was like the first time I saw something terrible happen on
like
TV.
A tragedy
like that where lives were lost and stuff like that.
Right.
So I'll never forget that.
Oh, wow.
That moment.
That's insane.
So when they showed it on, on
yeah,
TV.
they must have shown it over and
over again. Yeah.
Yeah. And then the final one I have, which technically isn't part of this week, but because it was the next day, I had to include it. The 18th Amendment to the U.S. Constitution was ratified, and for nearly 14 years, until December 5th, 1933, the manufacture, transportation, and sale of alcoholic beverages were illegal in the United States. And then this kind of got the growth of organized crime as a result, but it was repealed by the... Do you know the one that was repealed by?
Repealed by what? The amendment or the...
Like the 18th Amendment was repealed by...
Oh, who repealed it?
No, which number amendment?
Oh, I don't know.
The 21st.
The 21st Amendment.
That's right.
Prohibition, right?
Prohibition, yep.
Repealed Prohibition.
Yep.
They thought that if they prohibited the alcohol, that things would get better, and they just got worse.
They just got much, much worse. And then organized crime came about. And
exactly, yeah.
And the 20s was
and all that
oh,
kind
my
of
God.
stuff.
The 20s was a rocking time.
Now, if that happened with, like, Diet Dr. Pepper, then they'd be trouble.
Oh, no. Dr. Pepper must never go away. We love Dr. Pepper.
Yeah. So, well, that is another fantastic This Week in History, Jimmy.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for coming down. And like you had mentioned, that we have the California Gold Rush History Bites coming up.
Yes, I think it's coming up the last week of January.
So next week.
Yes.
Very good.
Very
Fantastic.
good.
All right.
Awesome.
Thanks so much, Jim.
Thank you.
Okay, that does it for this episode. Listen, if you're watching on YouTube, what should people do?
Hit the like button.
Exactly. Come on.
Subscribe or whatever.
Exactly. Or we will send Sarah to your house and she's gonna show you how to do it.
Yeah.
I'll
bore you to death. I'll be like, Sarah, what should we watch on Netflix?
She'll stand outside your door and look at you with a stern look and say, "You better press that button." Yeah, so do that. If you want to listen to older episodes or read our show notes, visit our website, mcplpodcast.com. So thank you so much for listening. For Sarah Fade, I'm Sal DiVincenzo. See you on the next show.